Hey everyone, I'm Wendy Joe, and this is the Grow Podcast. And I'm here today with my co host, Ashley. Hey, Ashley.
Hey, Wendy Joe, how are you this evening? We're recording on
Doing,
the evening.
I know it's unusual, right? We're recording in the evening, and I'm very excited because this is our first episode where we have a guest, and it's a really great one. Welcome to the Grow Podcast, Gina Laverde.
Hey, thank you.
So, today we're talking about medical intuition, and this is part two in our series about medical intuition. And before we dive into that, we want to hear about you, Gina. How did you come to this? What do you do exactly? And any thoughts you have that you'd like to share?
Sure. What I do as a medical intuitive is help people understand what's going on in their body if they're not feeling so well. Usually I work with people who are not feeling well. And my intention, the basis of what I do is to get to the root of it. So really help them come to, most likely it's going to be an emotional or spiritual connection to what's going on, and help them move through it. It has a lot to do with my ability to see into the body, which I don't often really talk about. I kind of like play it small, but that's where it really comes from. I'm extremely psychic, and I always have been. That's something that I've been since I was a child.
Oh.
When my son became sick, I was sort of forced to use it in that way, because I was left without answers, from all the people who were supposed to, or I thought were supposed to be there to help me. So when he became sick, that answer was inside, and I think that's my message to people out there, is that if you're not finding the answers where you think they're supposed to be, there's probably something inside of you screaming, saying, hey, listen to me, listen to this little voice, so I got into it because my son was sick, and I was forced to use the skills that I'd always, had as a child.
I think that's interesting because, especially in healthcare, we say unknown origins, and that comes up all the time. And, I just have a really hard time understanding how something can manifest, but we say it's unknown. The cause is unknown. Like something's always there, right. Something's always creating, there's no such thing as lack of movement. So I think that's interesting that you brought that up, and that it was accentuated through the health and wellness of your son. One of the questions that I have is, when was the first time that you experienced your psychic ability, and did it scare you?
Oh gosh, you asked the greatest questions, because you're probably very psychic, and that, like, when I was a kid, yes, I slept in between my parents on most nights because I was very afraid of the things that I experienced. So when was I not afraid? So my parents would put me to bed at night in my room, and I would see monsters and just bad stuff. But I would see this dove above my bedroom wall, and I thought it was the Holy Spirit. And so I remember feeling this deep sense of I'm safe and I'm protected because the Holy Spirit is with me. So
That's
I
really
was
cool.
so afraid of the scary stuff, but at the same time I had that. And then I would have visions of Jesus and his wife, and they would come to me and literally put their hands on me. And so this was as young as 5, 6, 7 years old. I remember that. But I was always afraid to use it publicly, until I was about 27 years old, when my son was ill. And that was out of absolute necessity.
Yeah.
And then, once you realize that other people need it, you want it, you push yourself aside, and you're like, okay.
Right.
But I've seen a lot of scary things, because just like there's light, there's dark,
So were you raised in a particular religious tradition?
So I was raised Catholic, but I was very afraid of the Catholic God and the Catholic Jesus. I had all these stories in my head, I had the real Jesus, and I had the Catholic Jesus, and I believed that the Catholic God was a mean God, and that I could get in trouble for the things, because I could read people's thoughts, and I thought they could read mine.
Mm.
And so I thought I better think good thoughts, because especially if my parents know what I'm thinking, I'm going to get in trouble. And like if I go to church and the priest knows what I'm thinking, I'm going to be in deep trouble. And what I was really thinking was, Jesus is not who you say he is. And I was young, I was young, and I was just like, but I was very comforted by my version of Jesus and his wife, who was a woman, this man and this woman and this dove and it was my little, you could call it imaginary, but it was my comfort.
Yeah. I asked because when you mentioned the dove and you used the words Holy Spirit, it kind of goes along with my thought that people receive things in the way they can understand them. And, if you, for instance, were a different religion, you might have seen something different, but it was, even though you didn't you didn't agree with what you were being taught, it was still packaged in a way that you could understand.
100%. And as I grew up and began to see different things and then wonder what I was seeing in research, I realized, wow, this stuff is just always available in the energy field that we're all a part of. And as I grew up and had visions of Jesus and, appearances and things like that, like I can remember one time I said, "Oh, that's how you look." Right. And he said, "That's how I look for you."
Right. Right.
That's how I look.
I understand. And for people who, for instance, don't see Jesus as, part of God, or it's just not part of their frame of reference, what are your thoughts about that? They might receive just something completely different that they can understand, right?
Absolutely. You could see a tree, a plant, you could just have a feeling, you could think of your mother, you could think of unity. For me, that was my ultimate sense of comfort. And also, he means something to me other than Jesus, Christianity, Son of God. To me, he means unity, unity consciousness. And I would think a lot of people would probably agree with that, but for me, I feel like one of my missions on earth is to bring people together who have different religions, backgrounds, ways of being, thoughts, belief systems, all the things, and be together in our differences and like honor and learn from those differences, and not just all melt together and find the common ground. We can find I feel like the common ground is that which I'm calling Jesus, but it could be anything. It could be anything that you feel like is unity.
Right.
Totally get that.
I think it's also really provocative that you, as a child, because you could know people's thoughts and see in their bodies, you made the connection that, well, everyone must be able to do that, and I think that everyone has all the gifts. It's what really resonates with you that develops. So I think it's just very very interesting that you had that thought. And why wouldn't you? Right.
I was thinking that too. I was thinking that too when she said it, but in my head, I felt like it was so constricting, like to always feel like somebody was thinking exactly what you thought. I just feel like it's hard to kind of live in peace if you're always worried about somebody having that.
Hearing your thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. You're spot on. You're so spot on. And I love your questions, because I would tell my parents, my brain is on fire.
Wow.
They didn't understand. I mean, they were just loving parents. They didn't know, they didn't get it. And I would like literally say, Jesus's wife. And my mom would be like, what?
Right. That in itself is a provocative statement in this world, right?
It is. Still. Yeah.
It's so interesting, because those who are tapped in or are aware that something is going on, you get pegged as like the black sheep or the one that's different. And, you got to kind of figure out how you can conform. So I always find conversations like this really interesting, because I don't think I've had enough of them in my lifetime to feel like that I'm okay.
You're okay.
You're way okay. And on that note, we'll be right back. Hey there, friends. Wendy Jo from the Grow podcast. So we're talking about medical intuition again this week, and it's a really important topic. It's the future of medicine. I've been tuned in to medical intuition since I was about 30, and have used it to learn more about my own health, the health of others. There have been times when I'm not paying attention and not tuned into it. Some time ago, I actually said to Spirit, only give me this information when I ask for it. And, you know, I don't get it unless I ask for it. And I think that's a really important point. I don't want information about other people's health or even my own unless I'm looking for it, right? So anyway, medical intuition, it's the wave of the future. We can add it to mainstream medicine, holistic health, wellness, really important stuff. Learn to tune in and check out The Heal World with Gina Laverde. You can learn lots more.
So we're back and we're going to talk about what is actual medical intuition. And I feel like I was a little foggy about the concept of what medical intuition was or is. I lean into my intuition regularly, but to put that medical concept on it, I was like, ooh, how do you teach that? So we'll talk a little bit more in the next segment about how you teach it. But right now I want to know, what is medical intuition?
So from my perspective, it's a way of reading energy and being able to discern it, having to do with what's going on in your body in terms of your health. Most of us think of health in physical terms. And so, yes, I do have the ability to, I'm going to say see, but it's also like see, feel, sense, know, what's going on in your body, or your liver speaking to your gallbladder, things like that, So medical intuition is the ability to do that, to read the energies coming off the body and into the body, and make an assessment like, this is what I see, right? And it is something that we can build upon. It's something that since our bodies are always talking to us and responding to what's going on in the environment, in a sense, we are all our own medical intuitives. And what I like to teach people is how to tune in and discern what those messages are. Mm-hmm. For me, it came naturally, but I still had to build upon it. So I'd say I'm much better now than I was before.
For me, over the years, because I kind of came to some medical intuition in my 30s, and what already had been working as an occupational therapist. So I learned to kind of blend them a bit, many years ago, and even today, I find myself doing that. I don't say anything. I don't tell the person that that's what's happening, because there is kind of a stigma attached to it. Don't you think?
For me, there's a stigma attached to everything I do. You probably have it too. So I don't care. Yes, there absolutely is. And, to speak to like the classical training and all the stuff, like this stuff that I do naturally is what shamans and medicine people have been doing. The Chinese people who wrote, the Chinese medicine text that 5,000 years ago. And they drew out the meridians without knowing really where the organs were, and they're right.
Yeah.
I know that. And so I think of all of it as tools. Who really knows? Like, we have been studying the immune system for how long, and what do we really know about it? Because we keep finding out new things. And if we knew that, then we could test it against those things, but we hadn't, and we're still alive. We're still here. So all of these things are tools, and what you do with it, I think, depends on who you are and your mission and what your clients need. So you could definitely blend them in any way that gets you and your client to their best health, to the health they want to be at, yeah.
Right. I think Western medicine can be very constricting. And for instance, if you talk to most Western doctors about this kind of thing, not all of them, but many of them,
most of them,
they would kind of turn their nose up, right? And say, what are you talking about? Right. But every so often I've run across a physician who, works with sometimes really difficult patients that they can't figure out. And if they're a colleague, I might make some suggestions based on intuitively what I feel, and they will take that information for the benefit of the patient, which really is what we're supposed to be doing anyway. We want to give them the best care possible. So why discount this? And do you think because it's discounted in Western medicine, a lot is missed?
Absolutely. But I've worked with so many doctors over the years, nurses, medical professionals who both have gone through my training, or we work with the same patient together as a team. So it's coming along. And with everything else in society, with technology moving at such an exponential rate, and all of this stuff with individualization in, your Western medical care with like genetics and like the ability to test for individual needs is really awesome. And it's just getting better. And so I see a lot of openings for marrying the two things together, or the 3 or the 10 things together. And it's good. The proof is in the pudding. I mean, the people are going to go for what works for them, and it's going to work, or it's not. And then they're going to find what works for them. And the people are going to either have to shift into that or sit in their little corner and pretend it doesn't work.
I 100% agree with that. I mean, and we all know healthcare is broken as it is today. Mm-hmm. So, and the patients are more informed than ever. And then to your point about the technology evolving, there's a lot to be said. It's a lot to happen that hasn't been happening previously. So I agree with you. I think that the integration of not only just the physical awareness, how can we help the physical body? If you're bleeding, put a Band-Aid on it, but also take into account the spiritual body, the mental body, the emotional body, and how all of those play a part in the overall functioning of the human body.
We look at it as frequency or energy, vibration, something that is measured with a sense that we're not taught that we have. Mm-hmm. And so in Western medicine, I think we're taught cause and effect, this, then that, machine, the body is a machine. And certainly if I cut myself, I'll bleed. So that makes sense. But for deeper things, it doesn't make sense. Like there's something that caused the cause. And what's interesting is like there's generational, there's genetics, but then there's generational trauma, and that changes our brain. And there's generational gifts and mission, and there's generational, wounding. I mean, this is spiritual, karmic, energetic, and I mean, they've just done there are a lot of studies. There are a lot of references that we could go to. There's things like where they have a field of cows and they electrocute them when they go to the fence. And they only have to do that for one generation because the next generation of cows literally doesn't want to get electrocuted, so they don't go to the fence. And that's just one study, and that's just cows. We're so much more evolved than that, hopefully, with the type of brain that we have. So I think I'm really interested in the brain and the capabilities of our brains, and how on the physical level, our brain is a conductor of all of this. There's something outside of that too, but we might think that health begins in the gut, or but the brain, we're just learning so much about how we can change our behavior patterns even.
I loved the exercise that you sent out today for people who are going to be doing the course, which you're going to speak about next. Because as an occupational therapist, one of the things that I do regularly with my patients is have them, no matter how old they are, cross the midline a lot and use both sides of their body. And it's very healing to the brain. And so when I saw your email about crossing, right? And, how healing that is, it just really resonated. And so I can't wait for the course and to talk about it. So we're going to take another break and we'll be back in a moment.
Have you heard of the Cannabis Nursing School? It's a place where cannabis nursing, entrepreneurship, and spirituality meet. The Highline Tribe is waiting for you, and it's so easy to find. CannabisNursingSchool.com.
Hey there, friends. If you're an intuitive like me, you have thoughts and feelings about your own health and sometimes the health of others. What you're dealing with is medical intuition, but you probably don't know how to harness it. Hey, I met this wonderful woman named Gina, and she's doing a training on medical intuition with her company, The Heal World. Let's face it, there's lots of people getting sicker and sicker, and they often don't find answers with mainstream medicine. We have lots of technology, but we're missing the key: medical intuition. If you'd like to learn more, you could email her at gina@blisslife.com or give her a call at 352-888-2100. The Heal World. And we're back. And in this segment, I'm really excited to hear more about the medical intuition course that both Ashley and I will be a part of. Woo-hoo. And I would love our audience to know more about it and what they could expect if they are thinking about taking the course themselves. So what is the course all about?
So the first class is really fun. I call it "What Kind of Psychic Are You?" because what we're going to do is uncover your unique ways that you receive your messages and show you what they mean. You're gonna figure it out with my help. And we're also going to use our body as a sensor. So like I said this maybe 3 times since we got on the phone, but our bodies are always responding to the environment and always talking to each other, right? So we're going to do a series of readings on each other where we're reading the physical body. And I'm going to tell you why I feel it's important. I used to notice with my students when I asked how they were doing, they would say they were doing well, or if they were going to get really honest, they'd say they were happy, sad, nervous. They would show me an emotion. So I noticed that whenever I would ask, they would think that I meant emotionally. And so I'd say, tune into your physical body, how do you feel? And they'd say, happy. They would still talk about an emotion. Hence the reason why we do the emotional detox before the class. Then when we get into class, we really are going to say, I'm feeling tingling in my arm. I'm itchy. I'm warm. I'm cold here and warm here, because those are signals that we completely ignore. So your body is the first sort of line of defense and the first thing that is feeling energy coming from around you. And we often ignore our bodies. So we're starting with the body, and you'll be using your body to read other people in the room and yourself. And we do different types of readings. So that's some of the things that I'm most excited about, is that we're going to use our bodies. We're going to do readings on each other. And
so we talked a little bit before we got on here, and you were telling us how the course came up. And so I don't think we recorded that piece of it yet. So would you mind sharing how you even came up with the course?
Yeah, I came up with the course because after working with my son while he was sick, I noticed that if I would put my hands up, even from across the room, he would mellow down. And then shortly after that, I started to be able to relieve seizures. And then it actually became that I started doing the seizure thing because I work with children with autism. So they have lots of seizures in that group. So I've been able to stop seizures for many people. But I realized it wasn't like me. I understood what was happening. It was energy that I was tapping into. In fact, I could see the liver, and during a seizure, I can see what's going on in the liver. And I was literally just like quieting the wind, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And so I knew I could teach it, and I knew I had to. I almost knew it was like I owe that to the world, because God gave me, or the universe gave me, the ability to help my son heal. And if you work with children with special needs, oftentimes their parents, they're like at their wits' end, they're getting divorced, they're trying everything. So I wanted to be part of the solution for them. And I knew that you didn't need a lot of money and a lot of tools. You just needed yourself. You could come to the class, you could learn that yourself, you're the tool, and you can learn these techniques, and you can get your own intuition revved up to a point where you can trust yourself. Then you know what to tell the doctor and ask the doctor. That's really empowering to know.
It's really empowering. Yes.
Your son is allergic to this antibiotic, and you know it.
Yeah.
And you can get a different one. Like you're going to demand a different test. You're going to demand it. You know it. So and that's another way we can marry together with Western medicine is knowing I can look at a client's tests and know like why the blood work was off. A lot of people with COVID who had COVID and have long COVID also have Lyme disease and stuff like that, of course, because it affected those people in a different way. And so now looking at their blood work, you can just, I'm always just telling them, you had, I mean, I can tell you had COVID, and it's, everything just needs to move through the system, right? And so people are like, I have this, I have that. No, you had COVID. Ask your doctor if that could be the reason.
Right. Long COVID is something that the Western doctors really don't know that much about. I know I've been investigating, and I took an online course. I wanted to know more about it because I feel that more than half of my patients have it. And how do we, how are we treating these folks when, as a therapist, you want to do exercise? Well, exercise can actually hurt people with long COVID, so I think it's really just brilliant that you're able to pick up on that and give people the tools they need when they go to the doctor to say the right words, and get their attention.
Getting the right tests and not taking the wrong tests really save people so much heartache, because we get so freaked out with tests.
Oh, for sure. So the first class you talked about, how many classes are in the series for this course? And just briefly, what are the other weeks about?
Sure. So there's 7 classes in the series of, this is like the level 1 series, and just right in alignment with the chakras, if your audience knows what those are. We start in the root or the body, and we move up into lighter sort of energies, right? So we are going to get into body movement and dance and art, and using those as tools, both to get messages and, receive messages, and also to give healing, to our clients and to ourselves. So the second class is more body movement, and the third class is a lot more scientific stuff starts to come in, and more doing readings and discussing, and gut health comes in that class. And then we go up and we discuss dreams, and it's very supported. As you know, you started receiving emails from me, and I like to keep it low key, but the whole thing is very supported, and that I'm here for you, and you're receiving support from me throughout your journey.
Nice.
I'm excited.
Yes, me too. I can't wait. And so this particular course starts on 4/20, right? Which I love that also.
Figured you would.
Yes. And Ashley, I'm sure. It's gives it a really nice vibe for the start. And cannabis balances the system, right? I feel like in a way medical intuition, having that, understanding that ability also is a balance. What are your thoughts about that?
My thoughts are that cannabis is an amazing herb, and it helps so many people. And we do learn about other herbs, and a way to really respect and honor all of them. And
this has been wonderful. So Gina, how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more?
So I'm sure you have a personal link to send them to the class, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So they should go to your link and look at the page that describes the class, and then they can always email me or see me on social media, and maybe you'll share your email maybe in the show notes, but it's Gina Laverde, my name, @hotmail.com. And I'm open, they can send me a message on Facebook, or send me a message to my email, or, through my website, which you have the link for.
Yes.
I'm open. I love to share. So
wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been fantastic.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed this conversation.
Me too. I'll see you ladies soon.
All right. Till next time. Have a great week, everyone. Bye.